These days, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries. And with that, we sent away good jobs and our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make all kinds of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs in towns and cities across the country. And jobs bring pride, purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.
Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Thursday, 3 April. I'm your host Daniel, and today we'll be covering the Myanmar Junta has declared a truce to facilitate quake relief. Netanyahu's defied the ICC warrant and has landed in Hungary. And NATO is seeking assurances amid US tariffs. So firstly, in response to the 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Myanmar, the country's ruling military has announced a temporary ceasefire in the ongoing civil war. This ceasefire, broadcasted by state television, is intended to facilitate relief efforts and express solidarity with the victims of the disaster. The ceasefire follows similar temporary halts and hostilities declared by various armed resistance groups opposing the military's rule. Despite these ceasefire declarations, the situation still remains critical, with the death toll reported to be around 3,000 people, in addition to 4,563 injured and 373 people missing. Amidst the tragic backdrop, there has been a dramatic rescue effort, including the successful extraction of a 26-year-old hotel worker from debris 5 days after the earthquake. The dire need for humanitarian aid has led to international calls for the military junta to permit greater aid access, with China and the UN pushing for increased assistance and the cessation of military actions against rebels. Before the earthquake, Myanmar was already facing significant humanitarian issues, with approximately 3,000 people displaced and 20 million in dire need of food. The UN continues to advocate for the protection of civilians and the facilitation of essential aid deliveries amidst the challenging circumstances. So what? It is good to see that the junta have allowed aid access, as the situation is extremely dire in some regions. It is likely that the junta are worried that the aid supplies, as part of earthquake relief, will provide support to the areas rebels already hold, allowing them to solidify these gains and prepare for renewed conflict once the truce ends. Regardless, it will take quite a bit of time to clear the remaining debris and help these newly displaced peoples. And next, in a controversial move coinciding with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's state visit, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has announced Hungary's intention to withdraw from the ICC. This announcement was made shortly after Netanyahu's arrival in the country and is perceived as a gesture of solidarity following the ICC's recent issue of an arrest warrant against Netanyahu for alleged war crimes in Gaza. This development is part of a broader pattern of defiance against international norms by Orban, who has previously invited Netanyahu despite the arrest warrant, signalling a clear rejection of the ICC's authority. The decision has sparked significant criticism on the international stage, with the German foreign minister speaking at a NATO summit, labelling Hungary's withdrawal as a bad day for international criminal law. Hungary's move raises concerns about the adherence to international legal standards among EU nations, especially given that Hungary ratified the ICC's founding Roman Statute, but never incorporated it into international law. It is anticipated that the Hungarian parliament, which is dominated by Orban's Fidesz party, will soon pass legislation necessary to commence the withdrawal process from the ICC, a process that is expected to take over a year. So what? This is unsurprising, as Hungary has always had a close relationship to Israel, likely due to the large Jewish population both now and historically. Additionally, it follows with Orban's anti-EU and anti-globalist agenda. However, Hungary is currently facing significant economic issues, and this is just another distraction from the real issues facing the Hungarian people, something that recent protests indicate can no longer be ignored. But let's see how long Orban is around for. And lastly, amidst escalating tensions due to newly imposed tariffs by the US President Donald Trump, NATO foreign ministers have convened in Brussels. These tariffs has aggravated an already strained relationship between the US and other NATO allies, including European countries and Canada, especially since Trump's election promises involved correcting what he perceives as unfair trade imbalances. There are additional concerns about the potential withdrawal of US forces from Europe, a speculation fueled by remarks from senior officials in the Trump administration. However, on the eve of the NATO meeting, Mark Rutte, the former Dutch Prime Minister and current NATO chief, reassured allies, stating that there would be no abrupt US military withdrawal in Europe. During the discussions, Rutte emphasized the enduring importance of defending NATO territory against threats from Russia and expressed hopes for a resolution regarding Ukraine. He affirmed the reliability of the US as a NATO ally in response to journalists' inquiries. Adding to the dialogue, the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio advocated for increased defense expenditure among NATO members, proposing a target of 5% of GDP. Rubio highlighted the US's commitment to the alliance, asserting that the US remains as engaged in NATO operations as it has ever been, aiming to reinforce a shared path toward enhanced collective defense investment. So what? Though it is currently quite a worrying time for NATO, it is likely that this shake-up is something the alliance needs, particularly as the war in Ukraine drags on. It is possible that this type of action by the US was the only way for some NATO members to start taking defense spending seriously. This is important, particularly if there is a large-scale conflict in another region, such as Taiwan, as the US would likely need to refocus their assets there, leaving the defense of Europe to Europeans. While 5% is significant, it is likely necessary to ensure peace in Europe. Thank you for tuning in to the Intel Brief, your daily update on global geopolitics, brought to you by HM Intelligence. You can support the show by sharing with your friends and leaving us a 5-star review. And if you're curious to learn more about intelligence, check out one of our courses in the description below. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you next time.